Hello and welcome to the Secrets of Happily Ever After podcast. I'm your host, Monica Tanner, and I'm really, really excited about our guests today. They are Mike and Kass Lazerow, the New York Times best-selling authors of the book Shoveling Shit. And I am so excited to get into this topic with them because they have been wildly successful in business and they've also been through a lot of ups and downs. And I am so excited to explore the relationship parts of all of this. Of course, this podcast is called Secrets of Happily Ever After. So I want to just really dig into how did you guys stay connected and on the same page and moving in the same direction during all of this chaos? So your book has a bold title, Shoveling Shit. So I am wondering why you chose to frame your entrepreneurship journey as a love story as well.
Mike, you start.
Yes, so Cass and I have been together for almost 30 years, and the consistent part of our relationship has been business. We actually launched a business before we got married, which we would not recommend as the default way that businesses should be started, but it felt right to us. We had a shared passion for innovation, and at this point, many years ago, internet and Web 1.0. And very quickly, it became apparent that we were going to have this kind of imbalanced life of the entrepreneur where we wanted to grow companies and make money and, you know, fulfill that side of our life. But we also wanted a family and we had kind of a vision for our life. And so we've had three kids. Kind of had kids around each of the kind of companies starting or key moments in the company. And I think the consistent part of our relationship is any co-founder relationship at work and any marriage, it's just about communication. And it's about kind of fighting fairly, not being passive aggressive, being aggressive, respecting the other person for who they are and not giving away who you are. And I think because of the shared life, we've been able to play to our strengths and really make up for some of the weaknesses personally and professionally that each of us has. And it's not always been easy. So, we're not here to say that it's been perfect. It's been very messy. We've shoveled a lot of shit at home and at work. But when you do it with someone you love and keep your eye on the prize, it is worth it.
Would you agree, Cass?
Definitely. And I think, we met each other. We've always known each other because I kind of grew up in his house and I was friends with his older brother. His older brother and I are the same age, and Mike's a little younger. And, so we had a lot in common, right? We had the same kind of morals and values growing up around the same people. I went to the all girls school, he went to the all boys school. But when we connected later on in life, we both had this shared interest of, Web 1.0, the internet. Like, what was this? This is back in like 1996. And from that moment on, I think we both saw each other's expertise and excitement and then respected each other's expertise, which I think was a big deal and actually laid the foundation for things going well at home, if that makes sense. Because we were apart for a year and then we moved in together and we would rely on each other in our separate jobs to help each other, right? And when we started companies together, we always had a date night. It wasn't, we did as much as we could to not talk about work. And it was about nurturing what we both like were excited about. And then once you throw kids into it, it's a whole different wrench. And I think that's been the hardest part for me is like two people parenting different humans. That's really hard, really hard. And um, we got through it. We're still doing it, but we've gotten through the hard times, or at least a lot of hard times.
Yeah, you're parenting all adult children. Yeah, so I'm half and half. I've got two adult children and two children at home. So it's different
Yeah.
parenting adult children. It's changed the
Yes.
game.
Yeah.
But
And bigger kids, bigger problems. less time to really make an impact as a parent. But I think we really laid the foundation for our marriage, because when you work with someone, it's business. You have to have thicker skin. Things are not going to be as sugar coated. This is work. And that really helped in our other parts of life, our personal parts.
Yeah. So in your book, you talk about role clarity in your business. And so, like, which is staying in your lane. The way I talk about it when I coach entrepreneurs is I talk about staying in your office. Like, each person has an office and you stay in your office. But how does that play out in your marriage when you disagree?
Mike, you want to
I think
take it
it's
or
the
you want me?
same. So, I mean, I could take it to start. I think it's the same approach, whether it's marriage or home. And, when you start a business, you pick a co-founder. When you get married, you've picked like a life partner, right? And the advice, as we wrote the book, the advice I would give to both people picking spouses and co-founders are kind of the same. And, there are about 10 different ideas that, we talk about, but one of them is what you nailed. And, it's this idea that you need to divide responsibilities clearly. Otherwise, you are going to step on each other's toes. You're not going to optimize your relationship. And so there's certain things that are my lanes. And so I've always handled like religion and travel. And I do a lot of the cooking, even though we both like cooking. I kind of enjoy the end of the day, just, relaxing my mind and cooking. And so she does 95% of everything, right? She does all of, like, as the kids grow up, the doctor's forms and the school forms and the appointments. And at work, I'm more the visionary and she's more of the operator, right? And so find someone who complements you, whatever that means in your life. And whether it's a co-founder or a spouse, I think having people who, appreciate the strengths and the weaknesses. Like, we all appreciate strengths of people, but, like, are these the weaknesses that you would be okay with? Like, if you know your spouse is going to have weaknesses, are these ones that you're cool with? And
And
if they're
have those
not,
yeah, sorry.
if they're not, run, right? And so the conversations that you have to have involve values, like
And having
future
those
vision.
conversations like early, right, Mike? Like
Yeah.
talking about that early. I think us working together so early in our relationship forced those conversations. And then the personal ones would kind of spill out, because we're like, well, if we're talking about this, like, how do you want to raise the kids? Right. And I see a lot of young people these days, not just entrepreneurs, but just people in general, that are not having the difficult, awkward, uncomfortable situations because they're afraid of the answers. And the answers aren't the end, right? It's just more data, and and that helps you in the long run. So, we would have conversations. I specifically remember this conversation with Mike about how we were going to raise the kids. And he said, well, I feel very strongly about them being Jewish. And I said, I'm totally fine with that. I feel very strongly that there are a lot of Christmas trees in my home. And he looked at me and said, sounds great. And that was
Well,
that, right?
yeah. Hanukkah Harry came to our house, so we just had Hanukkah trees.
Right, right. Yes.
I love it. Can you give an example of like a recent disagreement and like what that would look like if the two of you had different opinions on something and like maybe whose lane it was in or
And is this work wise or personally?
personally?
Let's see. Um,
Maybe with one of the kids or
it's definitely always one of the kids, I
I mean,
would
I
say.
have
Wouldn't you
one,
say?
like,
Okay, go, Mike.
we just became empty nesters
uh
Mm.
and we dropped our daughter off on a Tuesday. So it was about a month ago. And we made a commitment that we're going to, like, do new stuff together and celebrate it. That weekend, one of my longtime friends had a 60th birthday party in Vegas. And so I said, listen, I know I said we would do all these things, but I also have this. And we just got it out on the table, spoke about it, and came to a good place, which is like, yeah, I need to show up for a friend, and we're going to continue to kind of celebrate our, free boredom the following week, which we did. And we did the night before. We had a really nice dinner. And so, that may seem small, but if you don't talk about them, like in the past, I would try to like spin it and sell it and convince her why things are actually good for her. And then at some point, it was like, listen, you're not going to like this. I know it's going to cause some like more work on your plate when the kids were young, but I'm going to a 4-day fish the band, you know, kind of stand in Vegas. And I just want to make sure, unless there's like anything that I'm not seeing, I appreciate the support. And I know that this is going to be miserable when I'm gone and you have 3 kids. Like, tackle issues, get ahead of them. And it's not that that's a big issue, but if you do it again and again and again, resentment builds up on either side. And whatever the answer is, however you end, you move forward. You don't look back. You don't accuse.
I
Short
also think
memories are a great thing.
I also think that we became, or at least I should speak for myself. I became okay with saying you know, no, I'm not happy with you going. And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to make him feel better about something that was a conflict on his part that breaks the agreement. And I think when people do that in a relationship, it holds them accountable a little bit more. You're not, it's just like, it's not my job to make you feel better about the decision you're making. Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that in relationships. It was a tough choice. And I was bummed, and it is what it is. And he was apologetic and also knew we didn't have to put a bow on it, that everything was okay.
Yeah. I love that because he still gets to make his own choices, but he doesn't get to
Right.
choose how you feel about his choices. Right. So, like,
Right. Exactly.
that's a very important
Yeah.
And you have to be
distinction to
okay
make.
with your choices. Like, choices have
Right.
consequences. And so I think I've become, and there are examples on both sides, but I've become much more thoughtful on how and when I kind of do selfish things.
And
And
how
I think
often.
everyone should.
Yeah.
And how often? Like, you have to do things to make you happy. And if you value relationships, you have to understand how they impact the relationship. And you have to be able to, it took me a long time to hold like two ideas that were like opposing, right? Like
Mhm.
these dialectics in our lives, which is like, I really want to do this and I'm going to do this. And my business partner or my wife is not happy about it. Okay, I'm not asking her to be happy, and I'm going to do it. And you have to be okay with that, which was difficult for me for many years, especially with young kids who needed us.
Yeah, that's really good. So, a concept that we both really like is this idea of cheat codes. You have a lot in your book, which is so fun. I love a good cheat code. I talk about a lot of cheat codes in marriage. So I'm wondering if you could give us like your top 3 cheat codes for, and I should set this up a little bit because when you guys came to speak at the event that I first saw you and met you at, you told this story about how you were about to lose golf.com in like this, you thought you had this awesome exit and then you're about to lose everything. And you took off to, I think, San Francisco and you shared a motel room with your business partner. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, like that would be horrible. And then you like have this wild like swing into now you're making $345 million exits from, oh, what's it? Media Buddy.
Buddy
Buddy
media,
media.
Buddy
exactly.
Media. Sorry. I'm not very technical. Media Buddy. And that's a huge like swing of circumstances. Like most couples can't weather the storms that come from extreme hardship to extreme wealth and everything that is required, shoveling all of the shit in between. So I'm wondering if you can give us like three cheat codes for your relationship on how you kind of got through all the really messy parts of that.
Well, it's hard to say the cheat codes without realizing, you also pick the right person, right? So, you know, I think both of us don't want to go through things without each other. And I think that is the premise of, I would say, if I ever get resentful, it's like, wait, I don't want to do this alone. This is not what I signed up for. So I think a cheat code is that you go through the good times and the bad times. It's not one person's responsibility. And just because it's not fun doesn't mean it still doesn't need the same, combined support, right? So I think that's one, is that you have to make sure that you're sharing the load of the actual bad times, because it's not fun. Like what I think, and Mike can speak for himself, but I think he did find out, because he was younger than I am, that life isn't always fun, right? I mean, I think there's people out there who think it's just you get married and everything's fine, you're going to have kids. You have no idea who you're getting, right? When you have kids, they're all different, they all have different needs, they relate to you, each parent differently in different stages. And so that's a big one. I think another cheat code is we've always gone on dates as often as we can, away from the kids. So I think that's like a big deal. When they were younger, it's actually was easier to leave them. If we ever went even just a night overnight somewhere, or 1 to 2 nights, we always tried to get away from them just to remember us. Mike, do you have any other cheat codes?
Well, that's a really big one. And it's big if you're married, it's big if you just have a co-founder. And so you're going to lose the relationship if you don't invest in it. If it's just about work, your marriage, like if you're working with your spouse, you're going to lose like everything that's great about marriage, right? Like the humanity aspect of it, the intimacy. Um, and vice versa, like co-founders can lose their relationships if it's all like board decks and hiring decisions, and they're not like taking time to like have breakfast and go see music or play golf or connect as humans, right? So don't lose the humanity in the marriage for sure. Always date each other. I think the one thing that I look back at our relationship, it's kind of, just fight fair. Like disagreements are inevitable. Like you're not, if assuming your spouse is a thinking person, which I think everyone who's tuned in here has if they have a spouse, you know, bare minimum, they're a thinking human being. Um, attack like the problem, not the person. Like don't bring up like past battles as examples. Like I hate that. But like, yeah, you did this like when Miles was 2. I'm like, yeah, but I was such an unevolved like man child. Like, yes. And I've learned from that, and I have, right? And then like resolve it quickly. Like the longer something lingers with Cass, that tension builds up. Whereas if I'm just like, listen, do you have time to sit down? Like, I'm really sorry. I know you're pissed. I'm sorry I didn't listen and did this. I know that caused tons of headache. I can't reverse it. I am going to be proactive and not reactive in the future. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Um, like that conversation is a tough one for a lot of guys to have. Some women, but I feel like women are like better at communicating emotions in my world. Maybe they're not, but um, and what happens is you get over it fast, and the other person feels like they are being seen because, you know, and typically it's like, well, I shouldn't have done this, right? And so it's like a mutual I'm sorry, even though I don't like love that. Like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It doesn't really mean anything, especially if you've done it 100 times. Um, the other thing that I think is just, key is just trust. Like, realize that once trust is broken, it's like impossible to rebuild in whatever setting it is. I'm not talking about like infidelity and that stuff. That's like bare minimum, right? I'm talking about like, I said I would do this, and it's one thing to forget every now and then, but if your partner can't trust you to just do the bare minimum of what you say you're going to do, like, you're destined for failure, marriage and co-founder relationship.
Hmm. Okay, so let me see if I can summarize what we just talked about into the three cheat codes. I would say the first from Cass um, was repair or no, stand together through the good times and the bad. So be there for each other, stand with each other,
Yeah, share the
share
bad
the load.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
share the load. Okay, I love that. Share the load through the good times and the bad times.
yeah,
So I think cheat code number one. Cheat code number two, it was a good combination of the two of you, I think, is to invest in the relationship. And
right.
your good tip is through date nights is really,
Yep,
really important. Date nights and getting away as a couple. And then the third cheat code, I think, is build teamwork through communication and trust, is what I heard you guys say.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Mike was probably getting at, if you heal little fights along the way, they don't become a pile of books that fall over and become much bigger to clean up.
Yeah, that's really good. So the way I kind of describe that when I'm talking to my couples is like doing the dishes, right? Like if
Yeah.
you just do the dishes as they get used, it's much more effective than having this massive pile of
Yep.
caked on grime dishes and nobody wants to address that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so good. Okay, I love those cheat codes. I love them. All right, so my next question is, what's one thing that everyday couples, not just entrepreneurs, can take from your book and apply to their marriage?
I would say radical transparency.
Mm,
So we talk about how, and Mike touched on a little bit, we talk in the book about how that creates trust. And Mike just mentioned trust, like say what you mean what you say. And if you can be transparent all of the time, then you begin to rely on each other, and you rely on each other for each of their strengths and understand and forgive their weaknesses and accept them. So I would say that, like, again, it's this idea that you're not trying to make your job isn't each of to try to make someone else comfortable with your own feelings and whatever. Your job is to be transparent and work on things together.
love that. So good.
Mike,
So
what
what?
would you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a concept that we spent a lot of time in the middle of and thinking about called the pivot, which is basically like you make all these plans, you launch, and things don't go your way. And it's critical as a company to not do what's not working, right? And to pivot. And I think the same is true for marriages, that if something isn't working, find a way to get things working. And so if he doesn't like what you're doing, like, don't do it, right? Like, find a new behavior and vice versa. If there's this concept like just always, you have to like keep it fresh. You have to be innovative, which is what date nights were for us. Like, even though we were working hard, it forced us to like think about how we want to spend time together. Sometimes it was dinner. Sometimes we didn't even have the energy to leave the apartment. Sometimes it was a Broadway show or something else. And so just this idea of like change, do more of what's working and less of what isn't working. Don't get set in, like, we're in this world of AI where anyone who clings to old models, I think, is going to be left behind. That across the board, whether it's how you sell, how you service like customers, how you build product, all of that is changing with virtual employees, these agentic employees. And in many ways, I think your marriage has to evolve like that. Like, you have to like look for new things, exciting things to do together, and not just get stuck in old habits that get boring and build up resentment. And so for us, it's now, we're a new phase of our life. We're planning a bunch of adventure travel, some things that we want to learn that we've never had time we could learn together, right? Cass has always wanted to be a professional ballroom dancer.
Ooh.
I don't know if that's true, but I throw it out there. But that could be something that, who knows, we do. Like, we're going to the Arctic, which we've never been because we've had kids. We're diving into longevity, because we have some time and some resources to figure out, like, is there anything we should be doing to potentially enhance our health span? Um, and so, you get married, and all of a sudden it's like you find yourself sitting next to the same person on the couch, and people just get resentful and bored and feel like they don't have any agency, that they're just a victim.
But
And
Mike,
you got to
I
pivot.
also
You got to like move in different directions.
I also think that it's okay to be bored. Like I'm like I tell my kids, I'm sure you do too, Monica, that like they'll come up to me and be like, I'm so bored. I'm like, awesome, great. There'll be very few times in your life going forward where you will feel that way. Awesome. Why does it feel uncomfortable? Right? So, I think, I think you evolve as time goes on. And, we had what, 3.5 years before we had kids, but we were running companies together. So that kind of sped up how close we were. And then we had what, 3 years before or 2 years before we had our first child. And then kids really, I mean, for good or for bad, like they really change dynamics because you have your personalities, your own parent baggage from your families of origin in the parenting. And despite that, like you have different agendas most of the time. Like that's something I think that Mike and I finally figured out, I don't know, 10 years in that, you parent the way you weren't parented or what you missed from. And sometimes those drive things as opposed to doing it together or whatever that is. So, yeah, that was kind of a long-winded all over the answer, but
Yeah, no, I think that's so important because you want to feel comfort. You want to feel comfort in each other. So that's a little bit of that boredom, but you
right,
also want to be able to renegotiate. Like you always want to be
right,
growing and evolving with each other and
exactly.
sharing that with each other. So I think both of those, it's holding the two things, Mike, right? Like it's being able to hold both of those and love all of that. And I am so grateful for your time today. I know you guys are super busy and I want to respect your time. So I'm going to skip right to this last question, which is basically the crux of this podcast, which is if your kids asked you, what's the secret to happily ever after? What would you tell them?
I think the secret to happily ever after is picking the right partner to start with. If you pick the right partner, you get a lot of things right. And You don't pick for convenience, you pick for character and long-term fit and shared vision and, you know, having a life that's like anchored around a shared vision, a why, like, is really important. And too many people aren't as proactive as they should. They either settle later in life or they're just like, well, let's just get married, right? And so much follows from that decision. If you don't get it right, you have no chance. Literally no chance. Like, you're going to be miserable. He or she's going to be miserable. You're not going to be able to, if you're miserable at home, you're not going to be able to perform in any other part of your life unless you're a psychopath, which none of your listeners are. Um, and I think that's the only thing I got right. And then I worked on it a lot. Therapy, self-awareness. If you pick right, that partner will help you address your shortcomings in a loving way, which I had many coming into the relationship at 22 years old.
I mean, I would say like there's two, if I could say, like I
No,
said it before, but
just one. That's illegal.
I said the healing one, like heal things along the way, because I think that really helps. But I think the thing that I've realized from entrepreneurship and running companies with Mike is we always say to each other, can we get on the same page about this? And one of the things that we've done really well is sat down purposeful time to look at weeks, look at days, look at subject matters, things we have to figure out, things we have to get off our to-do list or get back to people or social plans. It's not one of us is doing the social plans. We're a team. And so I would say to everyone listening, even if you're very young in a marriage, you're not going to know what the other person's thinking. You think there's this like a fantasy out there that when you pick the right person, you're still everything's gonna magically fall in place and you're always gonna know what you should do and never have to talk about things. And it's just a load of crap. Okay. It's just not true. You can pick the right person, but the next step should be have a weekly meeting. Have a weekly meeting, right? And if you have kids, it's got to be without the kids. And you're sitting there. Yes, you go over what you have coming up and logistics, but also like, what are the goals? Talk about like, hey, what do we want for this year? Because that also helps to skirt around resentment that builds up, right? So, big time. I think that idea that people are not going to magically know what you want or what you think, even if you pick the right person. Have the meetings and call them meetings. Who cares if you meet with your partner, your spouse? You need to. You have a big life that you're journeying on for 50, 60 years. You can't just, think that he's going to or she's going to know what's going on.
Yeah, so good. I love it. Any last words? I mean, tell people where they can find the book and, if they have a pitch for you. I'm sure there's people
they
listening who
can,
are like,
They can always, reach us at info@kassandmike.com or DM us on any of the, social channels. We're the ones actually getting back to people. We love entrepreneurs. And you can buy the book on Amazon. So we welcome everyone to, get a copy, tell us what you think. Definitely review it if you like it. That would be awesome.
awesome. Well, thank you guys so, so much for this. This has been amazing. I hope that entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs alike will learn something from shoveling shit in relationships and in business. And, go give Mike and Cass, or Cass and Mike. It's Cass and Mike on all of the socials. Go give them a follow, reach out. And thank you guys again so much for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it.